Like, didn't even Trump say something about a deal that they were doing with Ukraine that involved?
Yeah, he got sucked into this talk about the rare earth minerals stuff. And, it's Donald Trump. It's like his weakness because, there's a lot of great things
Making
about
deals.
Yeah, there's a lot of great things about coming from a business background. But then there's like the weakness of it is that he's always attracted by you're like, hey, Gaza could be beachfront property, and he's like, ooh. And you can just see him like come alive with these ideas.
Land.
Yeah, it's always this stuff. But then the problem is that, and look, I've been very harsh on Donald Trump over the last few months, but I think he deserves it. And I think this administration is failing on so many levels, so profoundly, especially given the opportunity that they had. But, I heard him the other day. He called into a Fox News show, and he was telling the story of the war in Ukraine. And it's like, it just seems like he's it seems like you learned this on a TV show. Like, can we get some books in your diet? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, we really need someone here who's read a book about this, because he kind of had an idea of what he was talking about, but then he got it completely wrong. So he's trying to tell the story, and he's talking about the corruption of the Bidens in Ukraine, and you're like, okay, yes, that is true, but there's a whole story here that I don't think you're really understanding. Because he goes, look, this goes back to 2014, and so I'm watching this, and I got so excited for a minute. I was like, yes, it does go back to 2014. Thank you, Donald Trump. And then it goes back to 2014 when Putin took Crimea, and Obama let him have it. He just let him have it. Never would have happened on my watch, but Obama gave Putin Ukraine. And you're like, no, dude, that's not. Just go back 2 months earlier in that same year. The problem wasn't that Obama gave Putin Ukraine. The problem was that Obama took Ukraine away from Vladimir Putin. As I've played on your show, and you played with Tulsi Gabbard, the director of national intelligence has sat right here where I'm sitting and watched Gideon Rose explain to Stephen Colbert exactly what we're doing here. Russia, as Gideon Rose, the editor of Foreign Affairs magazine, said, Russia is Batman. Ukraine is Robin. We're stealing Robin away from Batman. That's what the Maidan Revolution was. That's why the USAID and the NED poured $100 million into this street protest, right? And so they overthrew the government, and then a bunch of the former Ukrainian prime ministers started floating out that we should tear up the Sevastopol lease in Crimea, because, this is Russia's only year-long warm water naval port. They've always had it. This was their agreement. They had like a 50-year lease or something like that. But after the West backed a coup that overthrew the government and put in a pro-Western government, they started talking big, like, well, maybe we'll tear up that lease. And so Vladimir Putin went, no, I'll just take it. And that was so anyway, so he goes back to that, doesn't go back a few months earlier, and then misses the entire point. Because the point is that it's not just like me being like, oh, I wish Donald Trump was into the same books I'm into or something like that. The point is that when you don't get that piece of the chapter, then you miss what's happening right now. So when you're talking about these, essentially what Donald Trump was saying, the way he was trying to sell it to Zelensky was like, look, do this rare earth minerals deal with us. And this is kind of like a security guarantee. It's not exactly a security guarantee, but if we're in business with you and then Putin's trying to fuck up our business, hey, he's picking a fight with us too. But the whole point is that that's exactly what caused this whole catastrophe. Vladimir Putin and the entire Russian elite have been crystal clear about this, that they go, look, we can tolerate a neutral Ukraine. We could tolerate NATO up to Ukraine. Ukraine is neutral, and then there's Russia. We cannot tolerate Ukraine being a part of America's military alliance. That's a step too far. But every time we try to let them be neutral seems like it's never good enough, and that never actually works. So if you're going to come in here and say neutral's not good enough, they're going to be part of the West, then we're going to say, actually, we'll take them as part of Russia instead. Now, he also believes, as he says all the time, which I just think is goofy and un-American, but he also believes that, they're not really a real country and they're kind of historically ours anyway. And, he's got his own views on that. But that's not what the war was about.